This is the introduction video for Module 11. In this module, we'll be covering themes related to women's health. In particular, we'll be covering abortion, health disparities, women and aging, and healing after childbirth. Thinking about abortion, I want you to be asking this question of how does the way people talk about abortion shape women's experiences whenever they have an unwanted pregnancy, and the choices that they feel like they have available to them when they're having an unwanted pregnancy. And this chapter 11 does a really nice job of covering the literature that reviews women's responses to abortions. And so we need to be looking to the literature, not just what we're hearing, because often sometimes things we hear out in the world aren't always true. And also we want to be thinking about regarding health disparities, that whenever there are differences in the morbidity and mortality rates of diseases between groups, so between, for example, white women and Latino women, be asking why do those differences exist, and instead of just looking at individual behaviors that are contributing to these differences, so woman A exercises and woman B doesn't, we'll be looking at the societal and environmental context and factors that make it more or less likely for people to be able to do these things. Because when we see health disparities between populations of people, we need to be thinking about how or why those exist, and not just reduce it to the individual, because often there are things in place that environmental factors like availability of or access to food, the availability of supermarkets, that really shape your opportunities to make healthy choices. And with a healthy aging, we're going to be debunking some myths relating to that, around just the aging population in general, women in particular. And then we'll listen to a podcast, and I'll warn you, they will be describing injuries sustained during childbirth, which is a little bit graphic, but I think something that we don't often hear about, and it's not talked about, and reflecting kind of this longer history in women's health in the United States, where women are often left out of the conversation. We don't always know, there isn't good research for treatment options, or even research to kind of cover the kinds of things that are coming up for women. And so listening to the podcast is an opportunity for all of us to kind of become aware and hear about some of the things that do happen during childbirth. And I think it is, or can happen, and it is an important thing to consider, because especially if we think back to our module talking about motherhood, society often thinks that women are meant to be these biological beings that are supposed to be good at having children. And so we often don't talk about the things that can go wrong, or how we should help women if they do incur or sustain an injury during childbirth, because we're just supposed to be good at it. And so we need to be thinking about resources and things that can be available to women, and to be looking out for women's health and their needs. So hope you enjoy the module.